The steak was overcooked. I barely touched it. The wine, an overpriced Merlot my father insisted on pairing with every meal, left a sour stain on my tongue. Marisol laughed too loud. My parents followed. It was choreographed. A ballet of cruelty dressed in designer dinnerware. I sat there, 20 feet from the ocean, a lifetime from belonging. So, what are you doing with your time these days, Connor? Marisol's tone was dipped in sugar and venom. Still looking, I said, stiff. You've been looking for 3 years. Her fork clinked against porcelain. At some point, it's not the market. It's you. Silence. Except for the clink. My mother didn't defend me. My father took another sip of wine, eyes glazed like always. I heard someone say once, Marisol continued, wiping her lips with the linen napkin, some people just take up space. That's their entire contribution. Occupancy. Then came the laughter. A full-bodied ripple from both ends of the table. My own blood laughing like I wasn't there. I stood up. Quiet. My chair didn't screech. That would have been too loud for them. You don't have to prove them wrong, I whispered to myself later, standing by the ocean. You just have to prove you're still here. The wind off the Pacific slapped me awake. Cold. Real. Honest. That's when I made the call. I didn't sleep. Instead, I drove. 8 hours inland. Into desert heat and legal fire. Next morning, I stood in front of the property. 2 acres. Barbed wire edges. A crumbling Victorian shell with a fireproof basement and its own power grid. It was ugly. It was mine. No more borrowed rooms. No more guest chairs at someone else's table. I signed the papers with hands that didn't shake. Cash purchase. No mortgage. Wired through my trust fund, thankfully still intact despite my parents' quiet attempts to lock me out of the family office. The realtor, an older woman with nicotine fingers and eyes that didn't flinch, said, "Most people buy homes for comfort. You bought this like a bunker." I didn't deny it. That same day, I received a text from my cousin Rafe, "Check your name on the escrow doc from last year's vineyard deal. Something's off." I opened the PDF. My name was there. My signature. My approval. But I never signed it. "You either burn, or you build fireproof," I muttered, cold rising in my spine. I was being erased legally before I even left the room. That night, I broke into my parents' home office. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. The wall safe. Hidden behind the painting of the storm over the Atlantic. I cracked it once as a kid, messing around. Now I had gloves, a blacklight, a phone flashlight, and adrenaline. The dial clicked. Inside, ledgers. Thumb drives. A black envelope marked, Nolan. My father's attorney. The fixer. I took the envelope. As I closed the safe, footsteps upstairs. Slow. Deliberate. I slipped out the back door and into the hedge. My breath caught in my throat. A flashlight beam swept across the garden. Then stopped. Someone whispered, "He's here." I froze. They weren't supposed to know. They knew. The motel smelled like bleach and forgotten cigarettes. I locked the door. Twice. Curtains drawn. Lights off. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the black envelope from my father's safe like it was ticking. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Inside, 3 USBs, all unlabeled. One printed document with my full name, Connor Elliott Jarvis, tied to something called Trust Ledger or 47 yen. It wasn't part of any inheritance I knew. It wasn't in any family email chain. And my name was signed. Again. Someone was rewriting me. I plugged in the first USB. Click. A folder opened. Encrypted PDFs, legal contracts. Page after page of property transfers, offshore transactions, initials matching names I recognized: Genevieve, my sister Marisol, my Uncle Jack. The files were clean. Too clean. And right there, smack in the middle, was my digital signature on the Sonoma deal. The vineyard land we were supposed to have jointly held. They'd sold it. Without me. And according to these documents, with my consent. If you let people write your name for you, don't be surprised when they erase you. My old mentor used to say that. I used to think he was just bitter. Now I knew he was right. I reached for my phone. A vibration stopped me. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then, a voice, modulated, low, genderless. You should have stayed out of the filing cabinet, Connor. Click. I stared at the black screen. A beat passed. Then the second USB buzzed hot. Smoke. My laptop went black. I yanked the drive out. Burned my fingers. Someone was wiping evidence in real time. And they knew I was watching. I drove. No plan. Just forward. Night swallowed the road. Headlights cut the dark like a knife against velvet. My heart beat too loud. At a gas station in Gilroy, I picked up a burner phone and dialed the only person I thought might still talk to me, Darius Crow. Contractor. Ex-Marine. Friend of the family since I was 17. He answered on the second ring. You're bleeding, he said. What? Your voice. It sounds like it's leaking. I swallowed. Someone forged my name on the vineyard deal. They're trying to move money under a trust I've never seen. And they knew I opened the envelope from my dad's safe. Silence. Then, where are you? I gave him an intersection. 20 minutes later, he pulled up in a black SUV. No questions. We didn't speak until we hit Monterey. He pulled off into a dirt road that curved into darkness. You trust me? He asked, engine idling. Do I have a choice? He lit a cigarette. The glow bounced in the mirror. I built security systems for your dad's law firm years ago. I saw files I wasn't supposed to see. The Jarvis family doesn't protect secrets. They bury them. He reached into his glove box. Pulled out a battered manila folder. I wasn't going to show you this. Inside, printouts, bank transfers, a notarized letter dated 3 months ago, intent to remove Connor Jarvis from all fiduciary responsibilities. My name was typed. Underlined. Signed, Marisol J. and Genevieve Stiles. She's not even blood, I snapped. Blood doesn't make you family. Control does. Lightning cracked over the hill. The sky opened like glass. Why help me? I asked. He didn't answer. Then he said, almost casually, what if I told you your name is more valuable off paper than on it? I didn't get it. Until he reached into the back seat. And handed me a photograph. Black and white. Grainy. A security cam still of me leaving the notary's office. Timestamp, 2 weeks before I even stepped foot in it. It wasn't just forgery. It was fabrication. Someone's building your trail in reverse, he said. They're giving you a life you never lived, so they can take everything you've got. Thunder. Close. I stepped outside. Rain drilled the hood of the SUV. Cold ran down my back. That's when I noticed it. A red dot. Flickering from the tree lean. Sniper? Laser pointer? I dove. The window behind me shattered. Darius shouted. Gun drawn. We scrambled to the car. Tires spun gravel. We disappeared into the black. Who the hell did I piss off? I muttered. Darius didn't blink. It's not about who. It's about what you're sitting on. We drove in silence until the road forked into coastal cliffs. He dropped me at a safe house, his words, not mine. An empty fishing cabin with cameras and 2 locks on every door. Before he left, he leaned in and whispered, "Sleep with one eye open. They don't want you dead. Yet." I asked why. He looked me dead in the eye. Because dead men can't sign over trusts. I didn't sleep that night. Because it wasn't just my signature they stole, it was my future. Morning hit like a backhand. I was already awake when the sun punched through the blinds. I hadn't slept. Every creak of wood, every owl in the trees, I'd clocked it. I made coffee. Burned it. Checked the cameras. All still frames. Motionless. Dead calm. That's when you should worry the most. Stillness was never safety. It was the breath before the scream. At 7:14 a.m., I opened the last USB. The one I hadn't touched. Inside, a single file. Password protected. I tried dates, my birthday, my father's, our firm's founding. Nothing. Then I remembered something Marisol once said at a party, drunk and cruel. Even Connor's passwords are boring. Try proof or something pathetic. I typed proof 314. It opened. A video. Grainy, low-res footage, my father in his home office, back to camera, talking to someone off-screen. I told you, we need his name. He doesn't have to know what it signs. A second voice. Female. Calm. Chilling. By the time he finds out, it'll be buried under 12 shell core. The camera panned briefly to a mirror. Genevieve. Smiling. Like she was proud of it. I dropped the laptop. The screen cracked. My heart didn't. It was already shattered. Control the paper, I said aloud, and you control the man. I needed to hit back. Not with emotion. With leverage. I knew where to start. I drove straight to Nolan Crest's office. The family attorney. The man who'd filed every trust document since my grandparents were still living. His receptionist, polished and perfectly fake, gave me a thin smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Crest is busy, dying, or both," I said, pushing past her. His door was locked. I kicked it open. Nolan sat behind his desk, pale, startled, already reaching for a drawer. "Don't," I warned. He froze. "Connor. Save it. I saw the footage. You filed false consent on our 47th yen. You forged a trust extension with my name on it. You knew I wasn't informed." He wiped his glasses. Hands shaking. "They told me you'd consented. They had notarized approval, digital, matching your certificate." I threw the photo on the desk. The one of me leaving the notary's office before I'd ever been there. They fabricated the timestamp. You were either sloppy or complicit. His lips twitched. "You don't understand how deep this runs." "I understand enough." He opened a drawer. Pulled out a small black notebook. Tossed it to me. Every transfer. Every off-book asset. Most were legit. But a few started going sideways. I flipped it open. Names. Numbers. Locations. And a coded entry beside mine. AMC. Escrow. Priority hold until termination confirmed. What the hell is AMC? Asset management and containment, Nolan whispered. Private. Operates like legal cleanup. If your name goes red in their system, you're dead on paper, I finished. And off it, if needed. I left him trembling. The air outside was thick. I drove downtown. Parked 3 blocks from the AMC address listed in Nolan's notes. It was disguised as a law firm, Winslow and Finch LLP. I entered through the parking garage. Rode the elevator to the 9th floor. No name on the button. Just a black tile. The doors opened to a hallway that smelled like ozone and bleach. An assistant greeted me like she'd been expecting me. Mr. Jarvis. My stomach turned. She led me into a conference room. Frosted glass. One chair. One folder. No one else. The folder had my name on it. Inside, medical records. School transcripts. Financials. My phone logs. My GPS movement from the last 72 hours. Every detail of me, cataloged. Then I saw the last page. A printed report. Target displays increased erratic behavior. Recommend final extraction. Approve, Genevieve S. I stepped back. Cold. You wanted to know how far it goes, a voice said. I turned. Odessa Bloom. The investigator from my parents' estate years ago. Fired for conflict of interest. I hadn't seen her since I was 21. She looked harder now. Leaner. She nodded at the folder. That's what they do. They don't sue you. They delete you. You were with AMC? I infiltrated it. Years ago. After they tried to scrub a whistleblower inside my firm. Been building a case ever since. And me? You were the only one dumb enough to trigger the system without dying first. She smirked. Then it faded. They're moving fast. The fake signatures are filed. If it processes, you lose everything. Including legal identity. So what do? We flip it. Use their system against them. Find the source file. Burn it. Where? She looked at me grim. Back where it started. I didn't need to ask. Home. They didn't just want me gone, they needed me erased. The drive back home was the kind of silence that bruises. No music. No talking. Odessa kept her eyes on the road, knuckles white on the wheel. You sure you want to do this? She asked. I don't want to. I have to. We pulled up just before midnight. The house was lit like a museum with grand, gold-warm windows glowing through the trees. A family of liars on display. I hadn't walked through that front door in 2 years. I used to think money fixed everything, I muttered. Turns out, it just buys more elegant ways to betray. Odessa stayed in the car, monitoring security feeds from her tablet. I slipped on gloves. Back door. Quiet entry. Kitchen. Still smelled like sage and lemon. A shadow moved. I froze. Just a dog. Old Lucky. Blind in one eye, still breathing. I passed him. Down the hall. Toward my father's study. The office door was ajar. Inside, the lamp was on. And Marisol was there. Sitting behind the desk. Like she owned it. She didn't flinch when I stepped in. Connor, she said, calm as ice. Was wondering when you'd show up. What is this? I held up the folder Odessa gave me. AMC? Trust transfers? You had me declared mentally incompetent without even calling. Because if we'd asked, you would have said no. She stood. Walked toward me like a CEO heading to a hostile boardroom. You were drifting, Connor. You were unstable. You've always been unstable. We made choices you weren't strong enough to make. You forged my signature. You didn't deserve the seat at the table. I stared at her. You know what people like you never understand? I said. It's not what you steal. It's what you think you're entitled to. She smiled. And yet, I'm the one in the chair. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Froze. Then looked up at me with a coldness I hadn't seen since we buried Mom. You shouldn't have come back. The office light went out. Black. I spun. Footsteps behind me. A fist cracked my ribs. I stumbled into the bookshelf. Pain lit white behind my eyes. 2 men. Security. Private. Not house staff. I hit one with the paperweight from the desk. Felt his nose snap. The second man tackled me to the floor. Odessa's voice exploded through the earpiece I'd forgotten I was wearing. Connor, move. Get out. Now. I elbowed the guard in the throat. Rolled. Ran. Down the hall. Past the grandfather clock. Through the foyer. Glass shattered behind me. A bullet? A vase? I didn't stop to ask. Out the door. Across the gravel. Odessa's SUV screeched out from the trees. Passenger door open. I jumped in. We good, she barked. I got what I came for. She looked at my hand. The flash drive. Clutched tight. Cracked but intact. It better be worth it, she said, peeling out onto the road. In the rearview mirror, the house burned behind its perfect windows. And Marisol just stood there, watching us go. Like she wasn't worried. Like she already knew the next move. And that's when I remembered something my father once told me. You never win by exposing the crime. You win by proving the motive. And I hadn't found hers. Not yet. I woke before dawn. My chest felt tight. Like breath was borrowed. Odessa was already awake, pacing the small living room of the fishing cabin. Her tablet was open on the coffee table, endless lines of code, encrypted logs, diagrams I couldn't fully decode. She's moving signatures again, she said without looking at me. I already knew. I'd seen the spike in filings last night, phantom assets, unauthorized trusts, all under variations of my name. It wasn't just identity theft. It was a legal siege. To be forgotten is not to be gone, I whispered, remembering a phrase I once read about ghosts in the machine. Today I'd become one. We needed answers. And the only place left to look was the heart of it, the county archive. The county building was a brutalist nightmare, concrete walls swallowing sound. Security was light at 7:02 a.m. That window would close fast. We slipped inside using forged press badges Odessa had acquired. No alarm. No questions. Just me, walking toward records I had no right to see. My stomach churned with every step. The archives were behind a steel door with a numeric pad. Odessa entered the code. The door hissed open. Inside, rows of filing cabinets. Dust motes in fluorescent light. Birth records. Trust documents. Property ledgers, she whispered. I never thought I'd root through my own history like a crime scene. I found my name. Next to it, another, Vanessa Crow. My birth certificate. Different last name. There was a second page, adoption records. Sealed. I knew adoption was possible in wealthy families, insurance for tax loopholes and privacy. But this was stamped sealed by court order. Marisol and my parents. They knew. They'd never told me. I stood frozen. The air tasted metallic. I slipped the files into my jacket. Then I noticed movement. A voice. Connor. Cold. Calm. I spun. Behind the aisles, a tall shadow. Not a guard. Just a woman. Hair pulled tight. Glasses. Shirt immaculate. Her lips curved. I always wondered how long before you found out. Dread bloomed. It was Odessa's sister, Veronica Bloom. I knew her face from old event photos. Quiet. Always behind Odessa at parties. smiling politely. But this wasn't social courtesy. This was predation. You shouldn't be here, Veronica said. I stepped back. Odessa grip tightened at my elbow. Veronica, she said. What are you? Veronica raised her hand. Let's not pretend you don't know, Odessa. Her voice was syrupy calm. But her eyes were knives. You think you walked into this blind, she said. I've been feeding information for years. You just didn't think to look closely. I felt the walls closing in. Odessa stared at her sister. A crack, small, human, in her eyes. Why? Odessa asked. For control, Veronica said. Your family wasn't enough. I saw you both as switches in a bigger board. Her smile widened. We're not just dealing with a land trust, Connor. You've uncovered a network. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, legal entities masked as charities, all tied into state contracts and political ties. I swallowed. This was bigger than my family. This was infrastructure. Veronica stepped closer. Your father made deals with people who would rather have secrets buried than profits shared. She paused. Her gaze flicked to Odessa. You understand now why your sister had to be quiet. Odessa didn't answer. Instead, she lowered her head. And whispered. You were never the only target. Veronica lifted her tablet. Data scrolled faster than eyes could follow. Maps, charts, trust flows, connections between wealthy elites, embedded across states. Power isn't taken, Veronica said. It is engineered. I felt those words like a blow. This wasn't about erasing me. This was about securing a network. One that needed my name as a fulcrum. My breath hitched. But anger rose sharper. I reached for my jacket. Whatever you built, I will expose it, I said. Her eyes flicked, amused. I would be careful, she said. The law hasn't caught me. But we have already ensured one thing. She tapped the tablet. The floor rumbled. Not an earthquake. The steel door behind me slammed. Locked. Automatic security. No exit without clearance. I was trapped. Odessa's voice was low, urgent. They said this. Veronica smiled. I gave the command. The archives camera blinked. Red light. Recording. I looked up. My name on a screen. And then the cabinet beside me vibrated. A hiss. A chemical release. Gas. I stumbled. Odessa lunged. We're not dying here, she snapped. I stood, head spinning, air thinning. Veronica's voice echoed as the room filled. It's either me or you two. A canister rolled. White mist curled. Pain hit my lungs. Cold spread. I forced breath. Not like this. I slammed my shoulder against the steel door. Twice. 3 times. The metal groaned. But held. Veronica watched. Smiling. Then. A distant alarm. Red lights flashed. Footsteps. Multiple. Not from outside. From inside the archive. Then a voice crackled. Security breach. Level 4. Veronica's smile faltered. She pulled the phone. Whispered fast. And then said, You can walk out of here alive. But the next move is public. I didn't wait. I ran. Through smoky aisles. Dodging shadows. Dodging cameras. Dodging the world that wanted to erase me. The screen outside the archive's reception lit up. Live news feed. My face. My name. My betrayal. And text scrolling fast. Unidentified documents found. Jarvis network under investigation. I stepped into the fluorescent lobby, breathing hard. I looked at Odessa, and we realized they'd leaked everything. To force my hand. To force the fight into the light. A battle I hadn't chosen, but couldn't escape. If I sleep again, I may not wake up. The courtroom camera blinked red. I stood in front of everyone. My hands were cuffed in public view, though I was no criminal. The DA's office was ready. Press pack huddled like vultures. The judge peered down with half-closed eyes, intent on business. I was nervous, but my breath stayed sharp. Odessa stood beside me. Calm. Precise. They can intimidate, she whispered, but truth is a physical thing. It can be held, pointed to, proven. The gallery was packed. My father in the front row, pale, thin, detached. Genevieve beside him, rigid, controlled beneath forced sympathy. Marisol glanced away, eyes flickering. I watched them all before the prosecutor stepped forward. State versus Connor Jarvis. Shock across the room. I was on trial for fraud? For identity anomalies? For something they engineered? No. For resisting the forced transfer. For trespass. For exposing classified record misuse. The DA squared his shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, evidence shows Mr. Jarvis manipulated trust documents to discredit well-established family holdings. Gasps. Phones lifted. The judge tapped his gavel. Counselor, proceed. My lawyer rose. Old. Stern. Unimpressed by theatrics. Your Honor, he said, the records being contested were illegally filed, forged, and backed by evidence submitted outside legal channels. Cut to the Hammer file. A flash drive loaded with every forged signature, timestamp manipulation, and offshore network data gathered by Odessa and me. Never mistake a paper trail for truth. Sometimes it's just a mapping of lies. That thought echoed in my head. The courtroom screen lit up. First, timestamps disproved. Then, IP addresses tracking to unnamed shell accounts. Then, one final file. Genevieve's notarized affidavit. Revealed as falsified. The room breathed tension. Then silence. A clerk began whispering. The judge leaned back. You contend this was an internal manipulation, not a crime committed by Mr. Jarvis, he asked the prosecutor. The prosecutor's jaw tightened. Yes, he finally said. Evidence suggests this was less a criminal act by Mr. Jarvis and more a corporate and familial conspiracy. Murmurs swelled. Genevieve's face drained color. Marisol's eyes widened. My father stared stoic. I realized then that power, like wind, finds every crack in a fortress. And not all fortresses are worth defending. Then the judge said words that felt like an avalanche. Due to insufficient evidence of wrongdoing by Mr. Jarvis and overwhelming proof of forgery and fraudulent misrepresentation by others, this court dismisses all charges against Mr. Jarvis. A collective exhale. I closed my eyes. I was free. Except the war wasn't over. As we walked past the press, a reporter lunged with a microphone. Mr. Jarvis, will you press charges? I didn't answer. Only watched my sister's face on camera, tight, hollow, unraveling. Outside, the air was cold and electric. Odessa slid an envelope into my hand. Just 6 words written on the front. They're not done with you yet. We drove to the old family estate on the cliff, the one I never really owned. Wind buffeted the SUV hard. I stepped out onto the porch. Windows dark. One by one I turned them on with a remote. Lights blazing through rooms that used to feel like judgment. The house seemed alive. Angry. Defensive. I remembered something that had once been said. Power is not what you have, but what others think you have. They thought they had me contained, but I'd slipped through their fingers. I opened the envelope. Inside, court filings. A civil suit against Marisol and Genevieve, filed in my name. Not forged. Legal. Verifiable. Filed at dawn today. They'd moved too fast. I knew the system's weaknesses now better than they ever did. It was my turn. I walked through the hall, footsteps echoing. Each room held a chapter of my old life, birthday marks on door frames, dusty couches, old portraits of a family so polished it never breathed. My father was gone, on his knees outside, staring out at the ocean. I approached quietly. He didn't turn. Connor. One word, no emotion. Dad, I said. His shoulders shook. I thought this was strength, he rasped, protecting the family name. The name protected nothing, I corrected. Not truth. Not justice. Not love. He didn't respond. He only stared at the horizon, the endless gray water. I left him there. In the dusk. Back inside, Odessa was packing up evidence, flash drives, signed confessions, encrypted copies of everything we found. No one wanted half measures. We'll take everything else clean, she said, eyes steady. My phone buzzed. Another email. Subject, public hearing, genetic records release. Attached, DNA results. The sealed state adoption order was now public. My name. Vanessa Crow. Different lineage. Not a Jarvis. But freed from concealment. I stared at the data. Identity isn't inherited. It's claimed. I claimed mine today. I stepped onto the cliff's edge as the sun dipped blood orange. Waves crashed below, violent, unrestrained. Like truth when it finally breaks the shore. I thought of all the nights I'd been told I didn't belong. Of laughter at dinners that felt like trials. Now the laughter was quiet. I opened my mouth. Breathed deep. And spoke the words that mattered. I am here. Not as a Jarvis. Not as an heir. Not as a forgotten son. Just as Connor. I walked back toward the house. Not to reclaim it, but to transform it. To make space where there was none. Because sometimes losing a legacy means building one that can't be bought or stolen. Only earned.